Welcome to the Think Yourself Healthy podcast, where you meet the intersection of mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Heather Duranja, founder of Nutrition Vixen, registered dietitian, nutritionist, personal trainer, and cognitive behavioral specialist. I'm a mother, author, self-improvement junkie, and recovering perfectionist turned professional half-asser. Each week, I'll be bringing on a guest or a topic that will help you go from surviving to thriving. Are you with me? All right, here we go with today's episode. Hello, everybody. On today's show, we have Jeanette LeBlanc. Jeanette spent most of her life working very hard to be a good girl. One day, she woke up and decided to write her way out of her own life. Things haven't been the same since. Single mama to two ridiculously unruly daughters, Jeanette believes in the smooth honey burn of whiskey, the crashing of Mama Ocean, pencil skirts, vintage band tees and fringed boots, the kinship of the wild wolf, walking for miles in unfamiliar cities, that burn down always precedes the rise, the singular power of dark red lipstick, and the necessity of putting out for the muse of the regular. Oh yeah, and that sometimes our stories are the only things that can save us. What an incredible introduction. I am absolutely in love with you.
The feeling is mutual.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share you and everything that you are about with the audience. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day, and I can't wait to get started.
Thank you for having me. Let's do it.
So tell me about this really, really amazing introduction. I mean, this really gives me a snapshot into, I want to be your best friend.
Well, I was smiling while you were reading it because it took me a while to pull that together, right? It's hard when we start showing up online or whether it's social media or a business or whatever, to consolidate who we are into this little tiny space, right? It's the hardest thing ever to not sound boring and like everybody else, or to be authentic. And so that bio was the product of many years of really filtering through not just what my qualifications are or how long I've been writing, but who I am as a person, and pulling that out into words.
I love it. It's phenomenal. It's definitely like no other introduction I've had the honor of reading. So I am so appreciative of that. That's so much fun. So I'll just share with the audience really quick. I attended an event earlier this year, and at the event, there was this little card sitting on the table in front of me, and it said, "You are not too much." And I'm looking at this card, and then I flip it over and I start reading all of this stuff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. I am such a huge fan of visual cues, easy ways to retrain our brain without having to put a lot of thought, energy, and effort into it. And ironically enough, for this year, I decided that 11/11 every day, I was going to have a reminder that showed up on my phone, and it says, "Heather, you are not too much. It's time to show up. Stop playing small." And so when I saw that card, I really felt personally that was like my sign from the universe that said, "Sweetheart, you are completely in alignment. You are here to do exactly what you are meant to be doing. And so let's do it." So tell me about this. Tell me how this started, where this came from.
Well, that is, as all good stories are, kind of a convoluted tale. I like to say I am a writer with no qualifications. I have a science degree. I was a photographer. I was a birth doula. I had all kinds of lives on the way to this one. And through it all, from the time I was pregnant with my first daughter, who's now 18, I started writing about life online. So I was probably one of the original mommy bloggers.
Wow, that's
back
amazing.
In the day, even before when I first started writing, there were no blogs. I wrote on the GeoCities website, so I'm aging myself now by having an 18-year-old daughter. And I just started writing life. And I discounted myself all the way. Well, I'm not a writer. I'm just someone who writes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a real writer, because real writers have books and real writers, do all these stupid things. But I just kept writing and writing and writing life. And over time, as my children got older, my writing kind of transferred from being all about them to the journey that I was on, and my discovery of myself, and my diving into, like I said in my bio, writing my way out of my own life. To another one and another one and another one. And then the You Are Not Too Much specifically came. So I have a series of writing that I do. It's called Uncommon Sense. And it's basically like a really inappropriate, filled with swear words, Dear Abby.
I love it.
So people will write me or text me or call me with a problem that they're having in their life or an issue. And then all of a sudden these words will come in response. And so I started sharing them. And this one was in response to a friend who had been dumped and told she was too much.
Oh, wow.
Which, how many of us can relate to that?
Oh,
feeling?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I know that my story started as a young child. And as a child, I remember, and this is going to date me, but I wanted to be Annie. And so I would dress up in my fake wig and put my red dress on, and I would run around the house trying to get anyone and everyone to listen to me sing, And I remember so many times, Heather, you're too much. Just go play. You're too much. And so that entertainer inside me started to die. And I never let her come to surface, because I truly believed that I was too much. And as a result of that feeling of being too much throughout my journey over the last 25 years, I got diagnosed with the kidney disease when I was really young. And then after the birth of my first daughter, I was told, I was going to need dialysis or transplant. And I just remember thinking to myself, I want to do all of these things, but I can't. It's not in the cards for me. I'm too much, And so after I had my daughters, I decided I'm going to embrace them. I'm going to let them be as much as they want. And I literally, my girls are now 23 and 19, and we joke all the time because I created stages for them. I did murals. I sewed them the most amazing costumes and outfits. And we created rock star cousins with all of the little girls, and, got karaoke machines. And I let them sing as much as they wanted, as loud as they wanted, because I never wanted my girls growing up feeling like they were too much.
Exactly.
And so this was very personal.
This world needs more girls, little girls, big girls, grown girls, women who are willing to take up more space.
Absolutely.
They can. One of the things I remember saying, and this is, when as a parent, right, your words come back to haunt you. I can remember writing in an online forum when I was still pregnant with my daughter and had all these ideas about what kind of mom I was going to be. I remember writing, I expect my children to question authority. Yes, even mine. And I remember as clear as day writing that. And sure enough, that is how it has worked out, which is not an easy path. It is not an easy path to raise children who question authority, because they do question your authority. But it feels so important to me in the world that we live in that my girls go out into this world not as good girls. Right. I spent my whole early life trying to fit into that mold of what a good girl looked like and doing what I was supposed to do. My dog's joining the video now.
We love him.
And I didn't want that for them. So I so relate to what you're saying. And sometimes I think when we've been raised that way, it takes having children ourselves or mentoring someone else or coming into contact with somebody else and seeing how important it is for them to take up space for us to actually realize that we can as well. Right.
Absolutely. So tell me, I think this is a really challenging concept, right? For women to really own. So what's your advice to somebody who is in that space of feeling like there isn't room to take up space? How do you encourage them to start to fill that place?
Right. So I get a lot of kudos online for being super brave and vulnerable and wide open and talking about things that other people aren't talking about. And I think it's really, really important because we do this comparison thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's what I'm writing about, that I'm writing about sex and relationships and dating and mothering in a different way than other people are, or whether someone's house looks beautiful or whether someone's thin. We compare ourselves. And what I think is really important to realize is, number one, I've spent 20 years practicing what I do.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't start out writing this honestly or showing up this honestly in public. And the other thing is that I've created a life of a lot of freedom. I am not partnered. I have older kids. I don't have an employer. All of these things that allow me to do what a lot of people can't do. So that's the first thing. Sometimes we see
How dare you do all of those things?
Right.
There's so many.
So as for someone who hasn't done all of those things, there's so many. You're not just going to be able to step out into this place where all of a sudden there's no holdback. It's not reasonable, and it's probably not even safe or healthy. It actually, you have to start in these small and quiet ways. Taking up space can look a million different ways. It doesn't have to mean all of a sudden you're telling these truths that you've hidden for 20 years, or leaving your marriage, or leaving your job, or, sharing widely on the internet. It doesn't have to look like that in the beginning. It's something you can step into. So my advice really is, this is not like the sexiest or boldest or widest, but start like, what's the easiest way? When people come to me, because I coach and teach people to write their stories too, and to tell their stories.
Oh, I love that.
If they're speakers, if they're writers, whichever way they need to tell their story, is you're not looking for a door you can open. There's not a lot of doors in the wall when you've padlocked yourself inside.
Right.
But if you can crack open a window, or if you can dig a little tunnel underneath, or you can squeeze a little sliver of light through that door, or maybe you can stand on some boxes and peek over the top, that's where you start.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. So what could that potentially look like for someone in terms of an action step?
Give me a scenario. Let's make up a person.
So let's say, okay, so for the woman who maybe has, lived her life for everybody else, she's been that perfect mother, she's been that perfect wife. Now all of a sudden her children are moved out, her husband is still working, but getting close to that retirement age. And they're just really feeling very confused and lost because all of the things that they have identified with that have defined their habits, their rituals, their daily practices are no longer. So how does that woman start taking up space for herself?
I think it really has to come down to telling the truth to ourselves first, which requires us actually to ask questions a lot of women don't ask. One of the questions, and I don't know if you've asked something similar of the women that you work with, you ask, what do you want? That is a hard question to answer for a lot of women.
Yeah, most of them can't answer that question because they've never even given themselves permission to think about it. Like, wait, what do you mean want? That's an option?
Right. It's what do my kids want, or what does my partner want, or what does my job need of me, and all of those things. So I think it really comes down to really being able to sit with yourself, and whether that's with a journal or a girlfriend or going out into nature and actually just starting in these little small ways. So maybe I can't answer the great big want right now.
Right.
But what's the littlest thing that's going to make me feel more like myself? Maybe it's the self I used to be. Maybe it's the self I want to become. There's so many things. I've been asked some pivotal questions in my life. One of the most powerful questions for me, the one that kind of set my life on a whole different trajectory, is a friend asked me, what are you knowing that you don't want to know?
Ooh. Oh man. Yeah. Okay.
And I promise, if you sit with that question for a little while,
yeah,
the rumblings that can change your life are going to start.
Absolutely. I can very much relate to that question because I kind of in a roundabout way, had to basically ask myself that back in 2018. I decided one day to walk out of a home in a relationship. And the further I got away on my walk, I decided I wasn't going back. Why didn't I want to go back? And so that moment, I decided that I was going to date myself for an entire year. And it was the first time in my entire life that I had ever taken the time and the space to get to know me and who I was and all of the things I truly didn't want to know.
Woman, we need to have 10 more conversations.
Yeah.
So I just took most of this year for the first period of my adult life, single and celibate on purpose.
Same.
I've never done that.
Same.
And it is one of the most transformational things.
Oh, it was
that
literally
you could possibly ever do.
It was literally the best gift I could have ever given to myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And
then I think so, if people are listening, they're like, well, I don't want to leave my relationship.
Right.
I don't want to be. But I think that there are ways to take the spirit of that commitment and incorporate it into whatever life you're living in, whatever small pockets you can find to date yourself, to marry yourself. It's funny, I put on this necklace today and I haven't worn it in a while, but this is a ring. In 2013, I actually did a ceremony on the beach and I committed to myself. But then I left myself again, because we do that. We come back home to ourselves and we leave ourselves over and over again. And I took off the ring at some point because I thought, well, this isn't true anymore. I'm not really committed to myself right now. And I was going to, the point I thought I was making was I was going to put this back on my finger, but then I realized this is a much longer story. We can talk about it someday. But I realized that it was time for a new ring and a new commitment. But I think it's so important to find these spaces because we commit to everyone else.
Yeah.
Another pivotal question that I've asked other people is, what do you do when your contract with yourself and your contract with another is in conflict? How do you navigate that space? And the answer for me is the only contract I ever really can have is with myself. And if that contract's out of whack, everything else is null and void.
Right. So this is kind of where boundary setting comes into play. Right. And I know for myself, I never knew boundaries. I didn't even realize I didn't know what boundaries were until I did.
I thought I had good boundaries.
Right. So for me, I'm 43 years old, and it's very it was like, whoa, wait a minute. I know no boundaries. And now in order for me to have a healthy relationship with self and a healthy relationship with others, I have to learn boundaries. Where do you start?
Right. Because we weren't raised with language around these things. I think again I'm 44.
Okay.
My children are 18 and 14, so a little younger than yours, but we weren't raised with language around boundaries. We weren't raised with language around consent. We didn't even have the tools to begin to implement this in our lives because no one gave us the words.
Right.
And I'm a writer and I'm a word person, and it's so important to have the language to work with because that's where you start. Any of this journey is having words to talk about this topic with. As an aside, for anyone who wants to learn about boundaries, Randy Buckley, Randy with an I, is someone who has absolutely changed my life. Her work on boundaries was pivotal to my whole becoming in the last year. So
that's beautiful.
If you don't follow Randy, go find her.
So it's Randy, and what was the last name?
Randi and Buckley, Buck.
Oh, Randy Buckley. Okay.
She's on Instagram, and she has her thing is called Healthy Boundaries for Kind People.
Okay.
So the whole thing is you don't have to be this nasty, mean, hard ass.
Right.
To have boundaries. But it's so important. You have to learn how to define yourself and to know your edges and to know your center and to know what it feels like when you start to leave yourself. Because I think for a lot of us, we're so used to stepping away from ourselves all the time in response to everyone else that we don't even know what it feels like to come home.
Right. Well, I can tell you that day, July 18th of 2018, when I chose to walk take that walk that day, I was so disconnected from myself. I was so lost from myself. I had no idea what, who, where, when. All I knew was that the further I got away, the deeper I could breathe, which made me curious to, if this is how I feel, what can I truly feel like if I allow myself the opportunity?
Oof, I have chills.
And literally it was the most empowering, challenging. I mean, so I'll just dive in a little with you, but part of this journey took me up to Northern California to the Mount Shasta area. And I basically spent 16 weeks in isolation. I lived in a hotel with just my little dog, forced myself away from all friends, all family, any kind of sense of normalcy, I removed all things and made myself as uncomfortable as I could possibly get so that there was no choice but to get to know me. And I'll tell you, those first few weeks, it was uncomfortable. It was kicking and screaming in that room like, who am I? What am I doing? The thoughts just were going, insane. And it was really scary. But then as I sat there and allowed myself the space, what unfolded was the most beautiful, magical experience. And I am so grateful that I gave myself that gift of just being curious.
Being curious, yeah. Actually asking yourself the question, which is why I go back to these questions all the time. And I didn't get to go away for that long, but what I did this summer or this fall at the end of my, self-imposed single phase of life was I went on a trip to Scotland for 3.5 weeks by myself.
Wow.
I've never been overseas. I've never traveled alone. And what you think is the bravery is in the going, right?
Right.
Like once I made the decision to go and I got on a plane and then I've done the brave, scary thing. No,
Right.
What's scary is when you land in the new place, you're still there with all of the baggage and all of the wounding and all of the pain and all of the fears.
Yes, I'm getting chills.
And sitting with that in Scotland, traveling on my own was exactly like you said, one of the hardest things I've ever done because I thought I would be different having made the brave, bold choice.
Right.
And I brought everything with me and I still had to look at it and deal with it and be with myself.
Yeah. I am covered head to toe in chills because I feel so connected to this. I think it's kind of ironic. Neither of us knew anything about each other prior to coming on to this. And it always just amazes me how the universe brings together, right, these circumstances, and that we're able to really share so much bigger of a story for all of those out there who are feeling lost, who are scared to take up that space. What an honor. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. And congratulations to you to gift yourself that. And what an example you are leading for your children.
And it was hard because I left, and for you and any other parents listening, that trip did not come at a convenient time as a mother. It came at a time where I thought, I can't go. My kids need me.
Right.
There's stuff going down. I need to stay. I need to be a good mom. And it took people talking to me and even my children saying, no, mom, go. You need to go do this. And friends saying, they're going to get more from seeing you take care of yourself, honor yourself in this way, than they're going to get if you stay in the mix of it with them right now. But that was not an easy thing to do. Yeah. And I wanted to say with what you were just saying about me sharing the story, because I got chills when you shared yours, you got chills. When the line in my bio that says, sometimes our stories are the only thing that can save us. And I believe that so strongly because, I mean, we are meaning making people, we're storytelling people. It's the first way history was passed around the campfire. We told stories and that's what we carried with us. We are in this hyper-connected world, so disconnected and so hungry to find ourselves in the experiences of other people and to make those connections. I think everyone around the world is leaning in going, please tell me something real.
Right.
Please tell me I'm not alone in this ordinary, boring life or this crazy mixed up traumatic life or whatever it is that's happening.
Yep.
Please come find a campfire and sit with me.
Yes. That could not be more perfect. And, you know, when you talk about people so desperate to be in the experience, it's allowing, by sharing these kind of conversations, these stories about our own journeys and how scary they were and how we had to make choices that weren't easy, but we had to choose us first in order to help those that we are serving, right? Those are scary things. And most often we talk ourselves out of doing them because we think, no, I can't do it. When I chose to go up to Northern California, I missed my daughter's 18th birthday. It was part of her senior year that I could not be there for. I had, you know, I was trying to talk myself out of everything. I missed Christmas. It was, you know, there were all these things that I was like, no. But the reality is the time is never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something. So if we're sitting around waiting for the stars to align and these pearly gates to open and say, now I grant you permission to go and live your life, be curious, do the things, it's never going to happen. And so we have to choose. We have to decide it's now or it's never. When you decided to take that trip, I mean, you know, again, you two could have easily talked yourself out of it, but there was a part inside you that was so damn curious. You knew you just had to go.
And I had people to call me on. I didn't commit to going until like the day before. The day before, I was still wavering. Was I going to get on that plane and go? Could I actually make this happen?
Yeah.
There were a million reasons, financial, like I said, motherhood, a million reasons not to go. And I had a friend who actually, I wrote an essay about it. Maybe we can link to it after. It's called You're Worthy of the Grand Adventure. And I wrote about that choice. And she actually just said, this isn't about your daughters. This isn't about any of this. This is you believing you are worth this. Like you actually deserve to take this trip. And that, the worth part.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to step into that.
It does.
It really does. And then I want to say also, because I feel like there's times when I listen to podcasts or I listen to interviews and people are talking about doing things that feel impossible to me. So you might be out there listening and thinking, I can't go to Scotland for 3.5 weeks. I can't go to Northern California for 16 weeks. That's absolutely possible. That could be really, really true in your life right now for a million reasons. But what can you do? Where can you carve out a half an hour that is just yours? How can you commit to finding your way back to yourself, even if you've never been there?
Right.
Even if it's a spot on the map that you've never planted a flag, how do you find your way back? What are the things that bring you closest to yourself? What are the things, the people you spend time with that make you feel that spark of aliveness? What are the books you read? Whatever it is, wherever you feel that pulse of something inside of you, find those things, make a note of them, paste them around the house, put them in your path over and over and over again. Put yourself in the path of whatever that magic is for you in any tiny, tiny way you can. Don't discount the tiny bits of magic.
Oh, that's so beautiful and so powerful. I think you nailed it when you said there's a lot of people listening right now who are thinking, I can't do that. That's not me. But no matter where you're at in the journey, there's always some sort of opportunity that you can take right now to start that process.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think another thing for me, and I feel like you're going to relate because I feel like we've been living these in sync lives. I used to do a lot of blaming of myself for every time I left myself, every time I stepped out of commitment to myself, every time I betrayed myself. I spent a lot of time thinking about how weak I was or how not committed I was, whatever those things were. And then one day I realized, and this is this analogy with yoga. I know yoga is so good for me. It is one of the best things I ever do for myself. and I will stop and not hit the mat for months.
Mm-hmm.
But I got up one day in a really kind of hard place, and I rolled up my mat and I started to flow, and I thought, I can always come back here.
Yeah.
Every single time I come back, yoga meets me
Mm-hmm.
in the exact same place. And for some reason, that flipped something in my brain about leaving myself.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I had been paying all this attention and writing all these stories about the number of times I betrayed myself. I'd not been telling the story about the fact that every single time I came back.
That's so powerful. That literally is so powerful and such a beautiful statement to our potential.
Mm-hmm.
We so easily get fixated on the not good enough, not showing up, the self-sabotage. We aren't trained to really celebrate the wins.
Right.
And I encourage people, it doesn't matter how small the thing is, celebrate it. If it's something that makes
the wins bigger and
yes, absolutely. We have to, I love the fact that you are in such alignment with just that tiny little thing. What's that one tiny, tiny little thing? And I feel personally, you know, with the little cards that were on the table. Yes, reading that you are not too much. Just that, taking that 1 to 2 minutes of reading that every day and reminding myself why I'm not too much and why this journey is important and why I have to return back to myself regardless of how lost I may feel. It's so important, and it doesn't require huge things like trips to Scotland and trips up to Northern California for 16 weeks.
Yeah, little things like having a card or a mantra or something that you return to over and over and over again, and reminding yourself of the fact if you're alive here, right, you've made it till this point, you're listening to this, that means you've made that return a million times already.
Right.
Or you would have been over and out by now, and you're not.
Yeah.
And so let's just take a second to be really excited about the fact that you've gotten this far.
I so agree. I love that. That's just such a beautiful thing that we can all celebrate, is no matter how dark it seems, no matter how dark the places seem, when we return back to ourselves, the light always shines bright.
Absolutely. And your thing might not be that you're too much. Your thing might be that you're not enough, or that you're too loud, or you're too quiet, or you're too shy, or you're whatever the two is.
Right.
There's always something that we tell ourselves or something we've been told by other people. Finding whatever voice you can inside to counter that. So I have an exercise that I do with my students and my community that actually asks you to sit down, actually call in your bullies, in the inner bullies or the outer bullies, the ones you remember from middle school, the voices of your family, your parents, whatever it is. Call them in and let them get loud. Actually ask them to get louder and louder and louder so you can hear every word. Write them down. And then you go do something that makes you feel powerful. Dance or go to the gym or have sex or whatever makes you feel like really alive. And then you come back and you sit down with all those voices of the bullies, a fresh sheet of paper, and you talk back.
Right.
Talk back like you were too scared to. Talk back like you were told you weren't allowed to. Talk back like you know those times when we have the perfect words later on?
Absolutely.
Write them down. Make those, and then put those words up around your house. All of that talk back that we could do to the voices in our heads, because we let those be really, really loud. I still do.
Right. Oh, absolutely. They no matter where you're at in your journey, there's always going to be those steps back. There's always going to be those moments of learning. And through that learning, we get to take immense steps of growth. And I feel that, it's unfortunate that we approach these steps back in such a negative way. We start judging ourselves or shaming ourselves. So it's those moments where we're lost and we have an opportunity to show back up. That's where all the beauty happens, is in those moments where we're lost. That's where the lessons are happening. That's where we're identifying these opportunities for growth. And we get to show back up. And like you said, it happens. I mean, I don't even know how many times in my life I've been there, right?
Absolutely.
And I know that there's going to be more because we are evolving, we're growing, we're changing. I refuse to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm. And we're so, as humans, and I think women especially, we are able to give so much grace to everyone else in their fumbling ways, and so unwilling to offer ourselves the same grace and the same compassion. I see it over and over again. I do it myself.
Yeah.
I find myself explaining why this person, explains to a friend how wonderful and beautiful and incredible they are, even though they feel like they're at their weakest and darkest time. It's really hard to do that.
It is. And I feel, yes, women definitely struggle with this, but there are just as many men out there who are struggling with the same stories, and they don't feel like they have the permission to actually express that, unfortunately, because of these, masculinity versus femininity type of narratives that we have developed. I know for myself, I definitely am way more in touch with my masculine than I am my feminine historically. And so for me, this journey is really learning how to get more in touch with my feminine and let my guards down and allow myself to be soft, right? And so for some,
parallel lives much.
Right? We're going to have to meet somewhere and have lunch, spend a weekend together.
Oh my gosh. Man. Again, the same woman who suggested to me that my hesitation to go to Scotland was about my own worth. She was the first person to bring up last year the masculine and feminine unbalance, and single motherhood, self-employment, working artistry.
Yep.
I'm the bug killer, the thing fixer, the bill payer, the logistics. I am in masculine a whole lot of the time.
Right.
Single motherhood even sounds like it would be the most feminine role. It's not. It is mostly a masculine energy role if you look at that. Talking about it. And she's actually the first person to say to me, you need to actually work in a committed way, a focused way on receptivity.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know how raunchy and out there can I be on your show?
You can be as raunchy as you want. I embrace it, girlfriend.
I'm holding back. She actually said to me, and she has a piece, and I will have to send it to you. Her name is Felicia Lynn. She said, you're not a dick. Be a vagina.
Right.
She said it more eloquently, but basically, you're supposed to receive, to actually work on receptivity.
God. Yeah.
You're out there thrusting your.
Yeah.
Anyway, this took a turn, but it was a really good one.
No, I think it was supposed to take the turn because for me, what I have recognized, and at the end of this event that I attended with Lindsay and Lori, where I was introduced to your card, my biggest takeaway from this whole experience was the resistance I had around receiving. So I'm in a new relationship. I've been divorced for 10 years, single mom, entrepreneur, all the things. You and I check all the boxes, right? And what's really funny is when I talk about being more in tune with my masculine, people look at me and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you look so girly, like you're so feminine. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not. I'm definitely more in touch with, and this really started at a very young age for me because my mother was only 17 when she had me. And then I have 5 younger brothers. And so I had to be the second mom, and I had all of these boys that I had to manage. So I really had to be this tough survivor for everyone. And then I became a mother, and then I had to be all of the things. Even though I was married, it very much was being like a single parent. And so then getting divorced and going on my own, it was more of that. And then I just didn't want to date. I was like, I don't even want to go there. I couldn't even let guys open doors for me, agreeing to let them buy me a dinner or a drink. I was like, yeah, no. So I'm working with a therapist, and this therapist says to me, this is probably about 7 years ago. And she's like, it's okay to receive, right? And this was the first time the thought of receiving had ever been interjected into my world. It's like, what do you mean receiving? I receive. What are you talking about? Like, I receive. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, fast forward. So I'm in this relationship, and my boyfriend and I were chatting, and I really I like sex. I love to have sex. Sex is a great thing. I have an incredible sex drive for my age compared to what I hear my friends talking about. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't relate to you. Like I'm this very, more sexually heightened person. And so anyway, my boyfriend and I are having this conversation, and he's like, I don't understand why it's easy for you to have sex with me, but me giving you a back massage is not a reality. And then I sat and thought about it, and I was like, why is that so difficult? Why, and then it dawned on me. Well, because when we're having sex, you're getting something out of it too. It's an exchange, right? It's a give take. It's not just me receiving. But when all of the attention is on me, I feel like it's too much. I'm being too much. And so my point is, at the end of this event that I had gone to where I was introduced to your work, we did this thing called the Angel Whisper. And it was so powerful because I had to receive this information. And as I'm going through the process and receiving this information from all of these women about myself, I was literally walking through the thing with my eyes closed, like dodging it like bullets, like, no, I am not those things. How dare you say those nice things about me? And then I get to the end of the line, and it was like so in my face, Heather, you aren't receiving. You got to loosen up, lady. It's time to receive. So here I am. I'm like, all right, it's time to receive. How can I receive?
And we can be, what I've also realized is I can be in this place of scarcity and lack and feel like I'm not getting enough. Mm-hmm. And what is really is I'm not even open enough to actually receive what's being offered.
Yes.
So there's all these people or all these experiences around me that are offering me things, and I feel like I'm not getting enough, but actually it's getting past that discomfort. And you and I, you're talking, we're actually the same person.
I believe that.
Every level. I'm amazed that we did not have one conversation before today other than a little exchange online, so we knew none of this.
Right.
We're actually the same person. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. It's so funny.
Like fake. And I've had to actually look, and what would it feel like if I took this thing that felt small mm-hmm. and actually allowed myself to receive it fully and to feel it all the way in my body. All of a sudden, this thing that felt maybe like not enough mm-hmm. becomes much, much bigger because I'm able to actually take it all the way in.
Right.
And I'm at the beginning of this work. I mean, there's still quite a bit to go for this.
Same. I mean, I feel like, well, it's really exciting to me personally. I get kind of excited to think, okay, well, if I've done just this little bit, like if I've only just dipped my toe in the water, what if I actually really go all in and submerge myself? Like, what could that actually look like? And to me, that's pretty exciting. I know that there's a lot of resistance, and there will probably always be some resistance because of our stories and blah, blah, blah. But the reality for me is that I'm curious and I want to keep exploring. And that is exciting to me, is to know that there's things out there that I don't really know yet. And what if I actually give myself the opportunity to find out?
Exactly.
Some of it's scary, but in the end, having to go through those scary things actually become very empowering.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love the example that you're leading for so many. It's such a beautiful thing, and I applaud all of the work that you're doing for yourself, for, anyone who is exposed to you, follows you on social media, gets a card, in their hand that you have created has the opportunity to read some of your work. It's just such a gift. And thank you for being so open and transparent and wanting to share that with the world.
Thank you. Someone recently on Facebook called me a permission leader, and I absolutely love that, because if I feel like if I'm here for anything, it is that radical permission, and not this soft, not this soft, always gentle. It is gentle and it's compassionate and it's full of heart, but also we've got edges to us, and we've got grit, and that grit's actually important, right? Because that's why we're still here and standing. And so the permission I want to grant is this radical permission to take up space, to create a story that's big enough for you to stand inside, to help you find your outside voice, right?
Yes.
That's another thing we're taught as children, to stay quiet.
Right.
Not ruffle feathers, like to actually get into this place where we're willing to name ourselves, to name the wrong that's been done to us, to speak up against whatever injustice we're seeing, to speak out, to claim our joy and our pleasure, that we can have that whole sex conversation, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, we're so going to have to have our own little series where we just keep coming back and keep doing these, because honestly, we have so many things to talk about. And both, I think that it's really awesome. Both you and I have that same kind of mentality, is that it's okay to be loud. It's okay to be inappropriate, talk about the things that people don't necessarily think they should be talking about. I'm a very blunt, bold person, and I love that giving that permission giver, because I feel that's part of what my job here is to do, is to let people know, here are my experiences. They're ugly, they're dirty, they aren't perfect. But through this, it's allowed me to reveal a piece of myself that was suppressed and hidden. And now I get to take that piece and allow it to live, bring light to it, start nurturing it, give it a little water, sprinkle some fertilizer on there. And I can't wait to see what it's going to grow.
Right. And the thing is, every time we get a little bit braver in our own lives, and you don't have to be having this wide, big internet platform to do this. Every time you're just a little bit braver and a little bit louder, and you take up a little bit more space, everyone around you gets permission, whether you give it or not. So your children, your mom, your friends, they see, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can wear that outfit. Maybe I can say that word. Maybe I can do that thing that I wanted to, because look at her over there. She's doing it.
Right.
And the sky hasn't fallen and nobody's been struck by lightning. And actually, it's okay.
Right.
To take up space.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So tell me, where can people find you? I'm so curious. I just have to know everything about you. I totally want to be your best friend. You and I are going to have to hang out. We're going to have to share more stories. I feel possible collaborations in the works. I just see so much potential and so much alignment here. And really, it all started with this little card that got placed in front of me.
Well, my website's just my name, Jeanette.com. That doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Mostly I'm showing up on Facebook and Instagram. I also have a Patreon that I just started to tell really no holds barred truths about my dating, sex, explorations. So that's a new project. And it's funny that you said, I think I just named my next book. I was writing an essay for that Patreon called But You Can't Write About That. And so I made a graphic for it, and I looked at the graphic and I thought, that's the cover of the next book.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
Because we have to. That's part of what this truth telling, taking up space is to tell the stories that we were told we can't tell.
Yeah.
Good girls don't.
Right. I have a podcast that's releasing this following Monday. It's all about sex. And in this podcast, I disclose a story about when I was in kindergarten and it was nap time. I did what I always did, which was went over to the mat and started humping myself to sleep. And the teacher came over and stopped me and called my mother and told my mother, that I'm doing this terrible thing. And so I get home and my mom has this talk and, oh, you can't do that. It's not right, blah, blah, blah. So I get told this story, right? That pleasuring myself was wrong. And so that started the whole creation of why I can't receive, right? I can't receive. Pleasure is bad. I'm not supposed to receive that. But anyway, in the midst of me sharing this story with the lady that I was interviewing, she stopped and she said, "Thank you so much for sharing that story, because the exact same thing happened to me as a child. And that's something I never felt I could talk about, but led me on this pathway to why I do the kind of work that I do." And so I'm not ashamed of my stories. Not everyone will relate to my stories. Many will find my stories very shocking. I recognize that I grew up in a very I've had a lot of adversity and a lot of adverse experiences, probably more than some of the average people. And in some circumstances, I've barely brushed the surface of what other people have experienced in their lives. But we have to give ourselves permission to talk about it, because once we can talk about it, we can let it go, and it's no longer holding us prisoner to whatever that narrative, that story, that thought was. And by sharing that, it allows me to say, I can receive pleasure. It's okay.
Right. And a lot of another kind of framework of my work is rewriting those myths.
Mm-hmm.
And rewriting the dictionaries that we define. You define pleasure as a negative thing, or whatever it is, whatever the definitions we've absorbed through life, actually creating our own dictionary with our own definitions for these words, undoing the myths that have kind of held us in our cages. There's a million more hours of conversation we could have about this, for sure.
Absolutely. I would love to have you back on if you are open to it.
I think we're going to have a whole series about sex. That seems apparent.
Yeah.
So you asked me, so people can also find, I have an Etsy shop with all kinds of prints and products. And then the most exciting thing right now is the book.
Oh my gosh.
So the book is, and is this going to be on YouTube so that people will actually see it?
Absolutely.
So those of you watching can see the cover of the book. This is,
I love it.
It's love notes on heartache, redemption, and reclamation. So it's actually radically permissive, fully compassionate love notes. And it's meant to be, I'm going to try to see if we can get it focused.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Pick it up and open a page and find whatever message is meant for you. And I also have it as a card deck. So you can actually order a card deck and pull cards.
Oh my God, I love that. I absolutely love it.
I'm happy to do a book giveaway for your listeners.
Yes.
You can set that up if you'd like.
Oh my God, absolutely. I would love that. And I think the audience would love that as well. We will definitely make that happen. Jeanette, thank you so much. Seriously, you are just the apple of my eye. I am so grateful that you and I had an opportunity to connect and share and exchange these stories, and hopefully inspire something in someone today who's listening to get a little bit more curious about what's really going on there, and what the possibilities and opportunity are for them. So I will make sure that I include all of the ways that they can find you in the show notes. So we'll make it nice and easy. And then the book is You Are Not Too Much. And where can they find this?
It's on my website and also on Amazon. So you can find it places. And so I want to do a little fun thing. Do you want to pick a page number and I'll read you?
Yes. Okay. So what is coming to me is number 39. I like close my eyes.
You got quick and easy.
Oh.
The incandescence is you.
I love that.
So the page before kind of gives some context for that, but it's from an essay about how we're all made of stardust. So we need to remember, when the shadows lengthen and the nights grow ever longer, that we bring our own light into the darkness. That even when it burns out, stars, you are still you. And your light is as true and as necessary and as ever present as the North Star that still guides the sailors home. So do me a favor, love, know this. No matter how dark the night may get, your light will never burn out. The incandescence is you.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is gorgeous. And In all honesty, that could not have been a more perfect message for me to receive because it parallels with some work I have been doing. So it's perfect. I won't share all the details, but it's perfect.
That's my hope for this book, that people will carry it in their purse, they'll keep it on their coffee table, they'll take the card deck, and then whenever they need a little love note, because we all need love letters, right?
Yes.
This world is ready for some love letters, so that you just open it and then you see what that page or that passage has to offer you and where you are in this life.
I love it. So
it's
with
like a tarot card book of words.
I love it. I'm going to definitely be ordering my copy for my own personal collection. I'm also going to get the card decks for my girls. I think that is a fabulous tool. It's something that I know that they would enjoy. It's probably more practical than them picking up the book right now, than pulling themselves a card. It's just kind of fun, right? Like, let's see, let's get curious. What am I pulling today? So I love that. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, all that you have created. I'm super excited to stay connected with you. And I feel that there's a lot more collaboration and podcast episodes coming. And
we're going to do it.
With the release of this, we will do a promotion around giving away a copy of your book. So that I thank you so much for gifting that to the audience. I absolutely love that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of excited people to have an opportunity to participate. Yeah. Wow. I'm just goosebumps still.
I know. I'm smiling ear to ear. You can't see me if you're not on YouTube, but I'm just grinning. This is beautiful.
And you're absolutely beautiful. Your smile is just radiating. And I can really sense and see the passion that you have for the work that you're doing. And it's impacting. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. I'm so grateful that you stopped by. If you could just take a minute to share this episode with someone you think who would love it, it would be amazing. Take a screenshot that you've listened to the episode and tag at Think Yourself Healthy and myself at Nutrition Vixen so that I can share it. Leave a review on iTunes to let us know how much you loved being here and what you want to hear next. Until next time, don't forget to think yourself healthy. Thanks again, guys. Bye.